Hi, I'm Chloe Canning. Welcome back for Season 2 on Lead with Courage. Illuminate Leadership acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, which we would call this podcast the Yagara and Terrible People. We pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome to Lead with Courage, the podcast that celebrates the bold and inspiring stories of leaders making a difference. We're your hosts, Andy and Cherie Canning, and together we'll dive into the minds of the trailblazers, the risk takers, and those who embrace life with a growth mindset. In today's episode of Lead with Courage, we welcome Ignite 24's keynote speaker, Chelsea Pottenger. Chelsea is the founder and director of EQ Minds and is one of Australia's most popular corporate wellbeing presenters. She is on a mission to reset the corporate agenda, asking businesses to prioritise their employees' mental health with this beautiful balance of science and sharing her own vulnerable personal stories. You might note in this episode we don't hear from Andy too much as his audio really wasn't being too friendly, but we hope you enjoy this conversation. If you're as inspired by us about Chelsea's story and you're keen to know more, come and join us for Ignite 24, held on the 28th of August in Brisbane, Australia. We hope to see you there and enjoy the conversation.
Chelsea Pottenger, welcome to the Lead with Courage podcast.
Thank you so much, Andy and Cherie. It's so great to be here with both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to have you here.
The first question we'd love to ask you, and no doubt we've got a few, but we'll thread the needle on this one, and it's one that we ask all of our guests, is when you hear Lead with Courage, what does Lead with Courage mean to you?
So for me, I think it's people who are willing to, challenge the status quo and champion new ideas, however, empower their teams to do the same. So in this context, almost like being an original. And I think a big thing too, Andy and Cherie, is understanding your intrinsic motivation to get you to your goals as well. And whether that's in work or your personal life, and making sure that intrinsic motivation is positive and authentic. So I'm going to share a quick story. When our daughter Clara was 5, we both noticed as parents that her pants were looking a little small. And I said to her, darling, I think we need to get you some new pants. And she replied, yeah, I'm too strong for these pants now. And in a word, I was kind of like, wow. And I was really proud. I loved her positive language. And that's a big thing, right? To understand your why and adopt it almost like a mantra in life that has the right tone, because your brain is always listening to what you're saying. Like, can you imagine if our teenage girls were saying that? I've got to get new active tights because my legs are too strong for these tights. I mean, it would turn the whole industry on its head, right? Where people have got more confidence and things like that. And so I think a big thing around leading with courage is that being authentic, having a positive tone of what you're truly believing in, and make sure whatever you're saying out loud, whether it's to yourself or to your teams, is that it has, it's positive, because the brain is always listening to it.
I love that. How fantastic. What a proud mum moment to hear that.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Before we jumped on officially, and, I feel like a bit of a fangirl, and it's a bit embarrassing, but I'm going to own it. But I've been following your work, Chelsea, for years. We were laughing off air that possibly we might be hearing your voice more than most because we listen to your insight time and meditation regularly. Maybe your husband was wondering who might listen to you to meditate. Is that what he said?
Yeah. He said, who the F listens to you on Insight Time?
Well, it's Cherie and Andy Canning.
That's right. Two people do.
We are here. But really, and we've got your book and, been following the work you do, and we're so, so excited that you're going to be part of the Ignite conference this year. I'm really mindful that there could be some people listening to the podcast that will be at the event, so we don't want to steal too much of your tips and tricks and your stories from the event, but there's so much we'd love to unpack with you today, I think, to find out a bit about your personal story, which I've listened to on different conversations and in the book, but really just to hear it from you of what started you on this journey founding EQ Minds and working in that mental health and mindfulness space. A little bit about your founder journey and your own lessons along the way. So if you wouldn't mind, can we jump straight into, I guess, motherhood is probably a good, or even earlier days, like your style, your career, where you were in life, and then I guess some pretty big moments becoming a mum, if you're willing to go there and share a part of that story.
Yeah, of course. And so thank you for having the platform and also allowing me the voice to be able to share these kinds of stories, because it's really important to myself to break stigmas of mental ill health out there. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, in the corporate world. This is pre having Clara, very long days. I had an amazing job at Johnson & Johnson, but we didn't really have healthier coping strategies back then. So at nighttime, Hendrick's gin or some kind of booze to take the edge off the stress. In the morning, a lot of coffee to get going, triathlon training, 12-hour days. Very much, work hard, party hard, work out hard. That's kind of how we lived back then in our 20s. Pretty unsustainable pace. And then 2015 enters Clara, our beautiful bundle of joy. And after giving birth to Clara, and something really ironic happened. And the reason why I say ironic to people is because usually I'm a really optimistic person by nature. So when this happened 9 weeks post-birth, it just completely shocked our whole family. And that is, after giving birth to Clara, 9 weeks later, I end up in a psychiatric hospital at a mums and bubs unit in Sydney, fighting for my life. I was so unwell, Cherie and Andy. I had terrible suicidal ideation. I was suffering something severe called postnatal depression. And the safest place I could actually be was laying in a hospital bed. And I hadn't really witnessed mental ill health before that, in terms of I hadn't seen it through such a dark lens before. And when you're laying in a hospital bed, you always will start having a lot of moments to think about things. Yeah. And I had a couple of choices to be made when I left that unit, which was a 5-week stay. And these are the choices I had, because I almost feel like when you do face adversity in life, you get to a fork in the road, almost like these sliding door moments, if you will. And so the two choices I had was, one, do I turn back, that pre-mental illness, that fast-paced lifestyle, living in Sydney, or do I learn and I grow from the gift that the universe has kind of just served up for me? And so at the end of the 5-week stay, my weapon of a psychiatrist, I love her so much. I send her a thank you card every year on the day I was admitted to say thank you for saving my life. And she said to me at the end of the 5-week stay, Chels, you have such a weird fascination with your brain, and you are such a lovely person. She's like, you're making smoothies for everyone in here in the morning. It's like you got your friends coming in every day. And she's like, and you've walked through the shoes of a very clinically unwell patient. I think you'd make a really good psychologist. And I thought, yeah, all right, I'll do that. So I left Sydney. That was 9 years ago now. I moved to a small town on the south coast in New South Wales to live a calmer, more peaceful lifestyle. I went back to university. I've just finished my postgrad psychology degree.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I cannot tell you how much headspace has been freed inside my mind. It is a really long journey to become a clinical psychologist for those of you that are listening. I still need to go on and do my master's and PhD if I want to do that. But the mission was then born, to be honest, and that was this. I didn't want anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, or anyone, across our beautiful country, to end up where I had, which was in a psychiatric hospital. I didn't want that for people. So I thought, well, I need to be the change. I'm going to, as much as I can, try and empower and educate people to take care of their mental well-being for the rest of my life. And so we founded a company called EQ Minds, and that was back in 2016. And to date, we've trained about 2 million people across the world. And it's, it gives me so much joy, to be honest, to do what we do. I feel every day, if I just make one small little change for someone to help them live a more mentally well life, I mean, what an awesome day that looks like.
It's so incredible. I truly, truly feel with so much passion about, isn't it incredible when people have a trauma and they have such heavy experiences that then they literally turn in to make a difference in other people's worlds. Like, to me, it's just magic. And if people can find their purpose and I guess that legacy and the things that light them up in their work, whether it's in the service of others, whatever it is, I think that is so precious in the world. And to see that you've come from literally five weeks, as you said, where it's life-saving. And I've heard you speak about the story in greater depth of really the depths that you were in, and the edge that you were at, I suppose, metaphorically, but literally. And wow, it's incredibly admirable. As I said, I don't want to be sitting here fangirling, but I sit here and think it's so powerful. You know, we had a very different experience, but our daughter was born at 25 weeks and spent 3 months in the NICU, three and a bit months in the NICU. And it's those moments, isn't it, when you come out and you go, you find the drive, the passion, the motivation, and that purpose, really. And it's incredibly powerful. And bravo to you, because you could easily push back and go, no, it's too hard, or I'll go back to what is comfortable or what I used to know. But it's the impact you're having, you and your whole team, it's really phenomenal.
Thank you, Shireen, Angie. And that would have been a really tough, challenging time, I can imagine, having your daughter at 25 weeks. So for you to get through that and come out the other side as well, I mean, that's huge.
And I don't mean, I really didn't mean be like, oh, we've had this too. But, I think it's like those moments for people where you go, it wasn't what you'd planned. It isn't ideal at all. It wasn't a highlight, but then the optimism and the blessing that it gives you. I absolutely love that. Can you tell us, actually, I'd love to know, how did you get what was your first gig that you did? Or when did you go from, I'm going to study psychology, to then speaking, because you're one of the most sought after speakers now, and I see you absolutely everywhere with the most incredible brands. You are just so in demand for a good reason. And so where did that start?
Oh, thank you, Cherie and Andy. It didn't start where it looks like it started on LinkedIn, that's for sure.
Does it ever, Chelsea? Does it ever?
Never. And no one sees that first year. That first year I didn't make $1, right? The first 6 months I was training, like I'm learning these things, and I was doing my mindfulness training, and I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine if the corporate world knew what I now know, or imagine if I can help out Gerringong Rotary Club and the nursing home, and how amazing. And my husband's just there going, yeah, this is a cute hobby. And he was just...
As all good husbands do. We've got to test and refine, yes.
And being ex-finance Andy, like in banking Jay was, he, he's very much about data, and he's like, percentage of this can fail, Chelsea. Like, what's the percentage of this is going to fail, this business? And I'm like, 0%, 0. And he's like, no one says 0%. And I'm like, this cannot fail. I'm like, the flame inside of my body, I'm like, I am going to work until this thing succeeds. And he could just see how happy I was with just like doing free sessions with the hospitals. And, I started off doing free sessions up here in Gerringong to the Rotary Club. And it was just so beautiful, right? Like I was practicing my content. B, I was just so happy because I was sharing these tools and having this social impact in our community. And then I'd see, Bob at the ocean pool the next day. Oh, g'day, Chels. I'm doing that gratitude practice in the morning and not checking my phone. Geez, I feel happy thanks to you. And I was just beaming, going, oh, that's so cool, Bob. I'm so proud of you. And anyway, so fast forward a few more months, and I'm getting sort of my head around this kind of stuff. And one of my very good friends was working at eBay. And I kept talking to her about what I was learning about, and she was watching me just meditate every day. And I was talking to her about all these kinds of things I was doing for my own health. And I'd spent a couple of months at the Nantin Temple learning about meditation. And I was just on a bit of a journey, to be honest, and really to help myself as well. So my girlfriend said, maybe you should come up to eBay in Sydney, have a coffee, and with our HR director. I'm like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And you know how it is when you first set up a company. I mean, you will travel 2.5 hours on a train for one coffee date, right? You're just so excited. And so I went up there and I was explaining to eBay what I was up to. And they're like, we really like the sound of this. Why don't you come in and deliver one session and we'll pay you? And I'm like, what? You'll pay me? This is amazing. And so then I get home and Clara and I are doing a happy dance and Jay's like, this is amazing. And so I go and do this one session. And they love it. And they're like, can you come back in and do like another 7 of those kinds of sessions? And I'm like, yes, I can. Then I get home and you're like coming up with the content, practicing all the content, rehearsing before you've got to go back up again and deliver another workshop. And they had such a great response culturally that they're still a client of ours 8 years later. So we still work with them all the time. And then just as serendipitous, happenstance goes on in life, the GM goes to Uber and they said, we loved what you did at eBay. We now come across to Uber and do it with us here. And then I did a post on LinkedIn and Westpac saw it and they picked us up. And so they're like, can you come into Westpac and do what you're doing? And then it kind of just went from there, it's, and I was really that first 3 years, it was just me and my beautiful VA from the Philippines. I hired her in on year 2 because I was doing everything, right? Like social media, invoicing, HR, taking in the phone calls, doing the briefing calls, creating the content, delivering the content, like everything in the company. And so I hired Michelle, our beautiful VA from the Philippines, and she was brilliant. And she stayed on board for 2 years until I empowered her to set up her own VA company from the Philippines. Wow. And then we started hiring local talent in terms of from the university. And so the company kept growing and I kept going, wow, I've got a lot going on. How am I going to manage this by myself? I really need a really great general manager and a few more people in the company. Some marketing people, some strategy people would be great. And so then I kept tapping my husband on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, you could surf every day if you come and join EQ Minds. And I just kept trying to sell him like just this, this beautiful dream. And, you'll be at home more with me and Clara. Won't be ships passing. I'll pay you the same salary as what the bank is paying you. Why don't we try this out? And I think the thing that got him across the line was, why don't you take a sabbatical for 12 months? And he was very well respected in the company that he was at. And I said, take a sabbatical. And if you don't love it, you can always just go back, right, to the job. And so he started with me. And then in a few weeks, he's just like, this is just game changing. And he's never felt fitter or healthier or happier because everything we learn, right, is for the vessel, mental, physical health and growth mindset stuff. And so he joined 4 years ago. He's still in the company and we're still married, which is a win.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. And then, obviously with all businesses, right, you've got pivots and you've got learning moments. And one of the big things that Jay always, I guess, compliments me about is that I'm not afraid to experiment and I'm not afraid to fail at things and course correct. And I'm very much the creative innovator and he's like the executor of ideas, which is really an important blend and mix. And then as we were defining kind of the success of the company, not just by financial metrics, but by the positive impact that we're having on others, I was like, wow, the more I help out, the more successful I become. It's like making me feel really great as well. But the real accolade was how do we scale this where it's not just me speaking. We've got other people out there who are experts, right, in their spaces who can also be serving, like best serve the clients and the community. And so building this sort of business, it's definitely not a straight line, right? It's gritty. You've got to be adaptable. There's a whole lot of heart. Sometimes there's tears. But when you know what the vision is and you're staying open to growth and committing to lifting your team up, extraordinary things happen. And I'm very blessed. I've got a team of 12 and I'm very blessed that that they're fantastic. Like the culture's amazing. They bring the vision to life, but they're just legends. Like that's actually one of our core values at the company is be a bloody legend, because we couldn't have don't be a dickhead. HR wouldn't let us have that. So we had to go with be a bloody legend. And that's kind of one of our core values. And it's true, right? Like you want people who turn up who are fun and they're reliable and trustworthy and they've got each other's back. And yeah, it's been a really awesome journey so far.
Wow, that's incredible. And how long have you had, you said, how long has Jay been in the business for now?
He's been in the business for 4 years.
Four, and it's 7 years old?
It's coming into 9 years old.
9, sorry.
No, 8 years. 8 years, sorry.
Okay.
Clara's 9. I started when she was 6 months old. Yeah.
Yeah,
8
amazing.
years.
Amazing. And so with your team, I'm really curious because I think whether it's speaking, whether it's other personal services or skills where the founder is the person with the, I guess, that IP or that the brand has been the founder's brand in the beginning and you want it to be something bigger than yourself. How did you go about finding the people to join you as far as other speakers and presenters?
Yeah, it's a good question. And as you know, having a business yourself, your people are everything, and you really want to hire slow, fire fast. Like it's just you have to get that right mix within the team. So I feel like our team is phenomenal now. Like we've had to do a little bit of adjusting throughout the journey as well. But when we're looking for talent, we're looking for a few things, like someone who's got a different skill set to what we all do. So, for example, we hired Ashley, who's a brilliant nutrition speaker. She does Fuel Up and physical workshops, and she looks after the sleep component of our workshops, and she's based in Melbourne. And then we've got Rob, who's over in Perth, who does, psych safety and leadership training and resilience. And then you have Jay, my husband, who is kind of like his wheelhouse is performance, that high performance mindset, discipline, accountability, productivity. That's kind of his wheelhouse. And then me, mental health, mindfulness, resilience, that kind of wheelhouse is mine. And so when we're looking for other people, which we are looking for someone in Brisbane at the moment, is someone who will complement the business, has a different things that they talk about, that they are awesome humans. I think that's being a good person is very there's not enough weight on that. You want someone who is reliable, will turn up, has got the drive, and also is just a really good person. And so things that I always look at when I'm in a hiring process is taking them. It's almost like you're dating them, right? And I sit there and I think, would I marry you? Like that's the kind of thought that I'm thinking when I'm kind of interviewing, in terms of when we're at a cafe, did they just say thank you, right, to the waiter?
Yeah.
Like their friends and their flatmates. What's your relationship like with them? What's your relationship like with your parents? And and things will be revealed because you have the same stripes in your home life as what you do in your work life. And people will leave little clues along the way. And that's something that I had to get a lot street smarter about, because I trust everyone. That's one of my character flaws. Whereas my husband, you've got to prove his trust, right? You've got to earn his trust. I'm like, oh my God, they're amazing. And so I've got a bit street smarter, to be honest, with my hiring process now.
That really resonates with me. I think the trusting side of things, for me, I'm an automatic truster, and then you may break the trust, but trust is always granted as a given or a positive assumption. But it's so interesting, isn't it? What I love what you're saying about those things, that when we are aware of the traits or the behaviors from people when they don't think they're on, when they're not being interviewed, or when they think it's unofficial, what are those behaviors? Because they don't lie.
They don't lie. And sometimes we'll take them out for dinners and drinks, because when people drink alcohol, then their kind of characters will also come out as well.
Yeah.
So you're just there kind of witnessing what's going on. And again, because our company is so small still, right? We've got 12 people. you can't hide in the company. You cannot social loaf. There's not enough fat in our business to hide. And so we will see that. And it's so, I don't want to disrupt the ship. We have such a phenomenal, beautiful team. And so they have to be a bloody legend, to be honest, to come into that stables. Yeah.
I love that. What are your other core values for EQ Minds?
So curious mind, right? Growth mindset. We love that. I think learning in life is just everything, like asking questions all the time. So that's another one. Another one is fun. I feel like a lot of the time in life we've forgotten the art of having joy, and here for such a short period of time, right? And so we really bring that element into our sessions too. So science-based, practical, fun is kind of our trifecta as speakers. And so we'll take the team away for a couple of off-sites a year, and we just took them to Melbourne actually, and we did a day of stand-up comedy training with NIDA, and like we went to a smash room, and then we went out to Lucy Lou in Melbourne for dinner, and just had a fun couple of days together. And then the team's always vibing, and we've got a hilarious WhatsApp chat where we just send each other funny gifts, or if we're having a kombucha challenge, and it's just a really good vibe. And then the fourth one is reliability and trust. And that's a big thing, right? As a founder of a business, you have to be able to trust, because what you're doing is empowering all these other people to represent your brand. Yeah. And so you need to be able to have people that are trustworthy and reliable, where you don't want, someone going rogue in Adelaide who are, who knows, they're out there sunning their asshole and then talking about it in a workshop saying this is really good for your mental health. I mean, that would not be okay.
All right, okay. Let me write that down. Sunning of the asshole. Yeah. Good.
Oh gosh.
That would be very brand line if that was coming through in our content. I'm like,
That'd be, I think you'd be famous for different reasons, but also each to their own, right? It's so, I resonate with so much of what you just said, largely because I look at you and I kind of just think, I might as well be talking to two Cheries on this call. And then and the small amount of correspondence I've had with Jay, I'm like, he might as well be talking to Andy. And it's something that you said kind of around like that founder journey and that kind of pilot light, that ember, that flame that just can't be turned off. And it's like, well, no, this is going to work. This is what I'm meant to be doing. Like, I have to do this. I resonate from hearing that from my wife, my beautiful wife, in so many ways, because there are lots of times where I'm like, well, what about this, and what about this, and how long are we going to do this, and what about if you just did it for you? And like we went through all of that, and what it comes down to is that the founders, you two on the call, you're just built differently, or maybe I'm built differently. I'm definitely built differently. So, and I think that that's that thing that kind of drives it when the nights are pretty dark, and it's like, no, I'm meant to be doing this, and it is going to work. I just have to make it work.
Yeah, it's true. And I think you're spot on, Andy, and Jay says that all the time, is like founders or entrepreneurs, they're a different build, because you have to have that unwavering belief and passion that your thing will not fail, because it is the thing that gets you through the dark days. It is the thing that wakes you up at 2 a.m. with innovation. You journal down a great idea. And it doesn't feel like work to that founder if they're on course and on true passion. And whereas someone else will be like, I don't have capacity. Like, what do you mean you can't earn money for the first year? Like, I can't do that. Like, I can't take that. And the other thing is risk appetite. Yeah. A lot of founders, they take risk and they back themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting that one of the questions that I wanted to speak to you about is kind of linked in here around imposter syndrome, because for so often when we're talking, in particular with females, not only, but in particular with females, this conversation around imposter syndrome comes up. And you were in a very different role before you started on this journey. Has that ever been a thing for you? Has that been a real life experience for you, imposter syndrome? And if so, can you share a little bit about it? How do you deal with it? Because I feel like it's very common for so many people.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's a human trait, right? Like the famous imposter syndrome. And It often will go hand in hand with perfectionism as well, where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others or setting really unrealistic expectations for ourselves, whether that's at work or at home or with a group of friends. And we run the risk, I suppose, of falling short. And that's kind of where you need to really dial back the negative self-talk and revisit that ability to show yourself some love and respect. And, in my personal situation, when I first started stepping onto stages, and, people don't see the hours that I put in terms of, I've got speaker coaches, I've got comedians that train me, I film every day. We are constantly refining our content every single time we deliver it. We're up there on stage going, okay, that person checked their watch or their phone. I'm okay with one person doing that. But if 5 people do that in an audience room of 500, I'm not okay with that. I need to change the content or that joke's not landing. And so the practice, right, is in the gym all the time. The reward is the delivery on the stage. That's kind of like the cookie jar moment, I suppose. But when I first did it, when I first started stepping out onto stages, like bigger stages, not the smaller eBay workshop rooms, like the bigger events, I had super jarring moments of self-doubt. Things like, why would anyone listen to me? Like what I had to say. What if I completely bomb it out here? Am I really an expert? That negative self-talk loves to creep in and whisper, almost like these sweet nothings in your ear about being an imposter. And I think it's really important to become aware of these harmful narratives in your head, and then you can sort of begin to consciously almost talk back to it. So, for example, with my negative self-talk at the start when I first started keynote speaking, things like people want to listen to what I have to say because humans need connection, hope, and guidance. And I've got a very personal, mental health story that will hopefully connect us in. I won't bomb my speech because I have been practicing this for 6 months before I get the green light from my coaches to say, you are now good to go up onto a stage. And I will not go up unless I'm super fully prepared because it's the value of time for someone, right? Like I'm very respectful of people's time and also the investment financially from the client. So I want to make sure the experience is amazing. And while expert, right, is a big word, I'm qualified, I feel, right, because I've lived through a severe mental health crisis and then I've educated myself and I'm completely immersed in this space every single day. And so sometimes, what we need to do is just call bullshit on the voice inside your head telling you that you're not enough and then being able to switch those negative thoughts to focus on the good is a really powerful and it's a really proven strategy to maintain that, right, for the rest of your life. 2 other quick things here. One of them is another way to feel better about yourself if you feel like you are an imposter is to show loving kindness, compassion towards others. I know that probably sounds a bit counterintuitive, to be honest, but when you start shifting the focus from you as a person and you start thinking about somebody else, your brain creates almost like an algorithm that looks out for things to appreciate. And so when I start feeling like imposter syndrome before I go on a stage, I'll say things like, this isn't about you, right? This is about the people in the room. And if you can positively impact one person in here, that would be such a successful day. You're just kind of the vessel that's giving the education out and take the focus off you because it's not about you. It's about the people here in the room. And then the third thing is verbal persuasion, from somebody else. So, for example, like Andy, I heard you pumping up Cherie a few times on the podcast, which is so beautiful and so important. Keep doing it, mate.
Thank you.
But when someone you respect, right, or admires tells you that you have the power to succeed and thrive, it will completely influence your self-efficacy in this life. And so if you are feeling like you've got imposter syndrome, like maybe you're like, oh, do I want to step out and create my own business, or should I go for that promotion at work, or should I ask that person out on a date? Do you have a friend or a colleague or someone in your family who you turn to, right, when you need someone to pump up your tires? And maybe it's a whole group of people, right, who are your cheer squad. And but it feels pretty wonderful to have people there for you who believe in you and see your potential, even when sometimes you can't see it yourself. And, when I decided to leave the corporate world, that's a big move, right? I was on a very comfortable salary. I really enjoyed my company, Johnson & Johnson, had lots of good friends there. But when I decided to leave to study psychology and set up this mental health company with this mission, right, to empower and educate and create healthier workforces, I was terrified, right, for so many reasons, like what would happen to my income. I was worried about losing my identity, right, as a goal-setting, sort of target-meeting corporate person. And I was also worried about, failing a little bit too, right? What happens if I can't help anyone? And then, entered my cheer squad, my husband,
Yes.
Jay, who assured me that we would be strategic enough financially, right? And he would back me. Yeah, he'd be like, "Babe, I've got you. You don't have to go back to work if you don't want to, but I've got you, and I'll back you and let's work as a team where you can take time off to retrain and not worry about loss of income." And then work colleagues and friends were all reiterating to me, "We are not going anywhere. And we cannot wait to see you thrive in this space of mental health advocacy." And most importantly, my mentors, I've got 3 of them, they helped me sort of point out the reasons why my message would resonate with so many people. And so I think that's a really important thing. Have a few people in your cheer squad. Maybe it's your mum, maybe it's your best mate, maybe you do go and ask someone to be your mentor, maybe it's your partner, someone your sports coach, right? Someone who has got your back. And never share your ideas with small-minded people, because they're going to chip them down. So you want to have people who are realistic, however, have got a positive, that they can see it with you. Share your ideas with them.
That's beautiful. Thank you. It's so important. The small-minded, sharing the ideas, the risk of that. I remember being in a team, and there was a phrase called defy the dream snatchers, those people who want to tear you down and pull your dream away from what you want to achieve. Defy them, show them what is possible. And I love those, Chelsea. Thank you so, so much.
That's okay. And you gotta stay away from the anchors, right, in your life. I mean, life is so precious and short. Like, think about the aftertaste when you've had a social interaction. What is your aftertaste when you leave that event, or you leave that social cat? Are you feeling fulfilled? Are you feeling joyful? Are you feeling like positive? Are you energized? Or are you feeling flat and drained? And just be really mindful of that stuff, because the people we do surround ourselves with, they're just so influential on our happiness and a lot of things in this life.
It's so, so true. And it's that observer mind, isn't it? Actually paying attention to how you're feeling after that event, or in the moment and after the moment. With you're going and you're speaking to thousands and thousands of people about well-being strategies. For you now, obviously there's been probably a lot of evolvement over the years. What are your non-negotiables for Chelsea and your well-being?
Yeah, I've got a fair few. The overarching role of health for me and my husband and our daughter Clara in our life, with everything, is that this vessel that we have, right, our body and brain, it's not a rental, right? This is like, we get this one vessel, and this is it. your mind and your body is it. And so 90% of the time we train, right? Like, we work out in terms of exercise. There's a big part of our life. We're always moving our body, and that's a non-negotiable. Every day we carve into the calendar where we're actively moving. It doesn't need to be pounding the pavement, but we'll take Clara on the journey too, right? She'll come to the gym with us, or we'll ride our bicycles, or go horse riding, or surf. Because of role modeling, we want Clara through osmosis to know, hey, fitness and movement's really, really important in our life as a family. 2, I meditate every day without fail. I think, 10 minutes for me of meditation daily, it just makes me a calmer force. And I love it. I think it recharges my brain on every level. I've seen the science behind it. I'm convinced of it. So I've got that into the calendar every day. Another non-negotiable is my sleep. I'm fastidious about protecting my sleep. My sleep hygiene is so dialed in. I actually don't even sleep in the same room as Jay, my husband.
Don't you?
No.
Separate rooms, because it's
Separate
not giving you
rooms.
quality sleep.
That's it. Yeah, and I know that's a bit of a taboo, right? People don't really talk about that. And again, people who are listening, each to your own. I'm just sharing you what I do. But my husband's about 6'5" and I'm 5'11", and so that's a lot of human being, first of all, in one king size bed. And Jay snores a bit, and I fidget around. And when you've been married to someone for like nearly 20 years, you're like, you know what, mate, I've seen your face a lot. To that other person.
Sleep in there.
Yeah. And we love each other so much. We're intimate, and he's a magnificent human, and we just adore each other. But we just sleep in separate rooms. It allows me to get a good 8 hours, and that's a really big thing for my mental health. I've got a fragmented sleep gene, which means if I get fragmented sleep, like Clara wakes me up a few times or the puppy dog used to, my mental ill health goes in about 3 days. And so I've got to really honour my sleep. I need about 8 hours a night. It's a big, big thing for my life. And so you can hear like common pillars, right? Like nutrition, sleep, some kind of stress management tool, relationships. My biggest investment is like my friendships and connection. And so I always schedule in every 6 weeks I take a holiday. Now I know that sounds really luxurious, but it doesn't need to be going overseas. It could just be 3 days off the grid camping somewhere. And that'll be with really good friends or with my family, and instilling these moments of joy. And 2 weeks before we take the break, we get this thing called anticipatory joy, which is like a serotonin release, right? Because you're thinking about going on a holiday or a break. So you just sound really happy, right? You speak to anyone going on a holiday, how do they sound? They sound like super upbeat, right? And it's very annoying for the people who don't have a holiday coming up because they sound really chipper and we don't have anything booked. So it's a big thing in our life. In January, we book in every 6 weeks. We take a break, and I'll do independent holidays away from Jay and Clara and go with some girlfriends somewhere. He'll do the same with his mates. Every couple of times we'll go away as a family unit. Jay and I will have a date holiday where we might go hiking in Tassie. So we've got lots of different kinds of things going on, but that's one of my biggest dial-ups for my happiness is connection and memories with the people that I really love in this life, that we're kind of, walking this journey together. And so there's a few things that I do. There's so many more. Like my morning routine's super dialed in, but there's kind of some overarching themes that I really feel like the number one thing to me anyway is sleep. I think that's like the elixir of life, and for people who aren't sleeping well, it can be pretty torturous. So if you can optimize your sleep, everything else kind of falls into alignment the next day.
So true.
I have a question for Chelsea, actually. I'd love to know, what are you most proud of? I feel like you've achieved a lot, and you maybe say you've got a long way to go as well, and you're not done yet, and nor should you be. But what to date, for where you are right now, what are you most proud of?
I feel like one of the things that I'm most proud of is the relationship I have with not just my own family, like with Jay and Clara, because who you marry, more importantly, who you actually have children with, is going to be the biggest decision you ever make in this life. That is going to be the biggest indicator, I think, of happiness, because that person is going to be in your life for the rest of your life. And I feel like I'm very proud that I chose well in that space. I definitely punched up, like Jay was super hot when he was 18 and I locked him in really young. And so, but hotness was such a thing when you're 18, but it's the values that come on behind the scenes that is just unreal, that I was kind of looking at when I was going to get married to him. And so I'm very proud of our really lovely connected family. Despite, growing a business and having a lot of things on, I feel like we're very mindful of like downing tools, before Clara gets home. We take her a lot on the road with us. I mean, we're going to Portugal next year for 4 months, and she's coming to live in Portugal to get cultural immersion, and we'll work from there. So I'm really proud of that. And probably to piggyback off that and go a little bit further is that I'm very proud of the relationship I have with my family, not just on my side, my mum and dad. I'm very blessed they're still alive, and my sister and brother, we are super tight. So I see them, they live up at the Sunshine Coast, but part of our marriage agreement of me living South Coast near Jay's family is that I fly up and see my family every 4 to 6 weeks because they mean a lot to me. And then also Jay's family on this side is just, they're so far from dysfunction, it's not even funny. Like, they're just so normal and awesome. And so I feel like I'm really proud of that, that I've invested strongly in those relationships and my friendships. And because when the going gets tough, then they're not just the people who are like fair weather friends, right? Where the times are good and they turn up for all the good times, and you're loving your life and you're partying on the harbour and people are around and you got quantity. They're the people that turn up in the dark times, right? That will almost like illuminate a torch for you and help you shine the way through the darkness. And the people that I'm thinking of are the people that turned up for me in the hospital unit every day, and they're just a beautiful group of friends. And so that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of our very strong connections, and it just makes me super happy too.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So beautiful. I've never asked anyone this question in regards to postnatal depression, and I'm curious to know, years down the track with Clara, how did those early days experience impact the relationship for the two of you?
That's a great question, Cherie. I was petrified that this is going to affect Clara, like petrified. I think that's part of the reason why I didn't sort of talk about it quick enough. I was just kind of in denial and telling everyone I was doing okay, and then just kept sleeping every day. And I just thought one day I'm going to snap out of it, and I just never did. And I just got so clinically unwell. And I remember in the hospital, and because when you have significant depression and anxiety, you're having these out of body experiences. Like I couldn't even, relate to this. There's obviously some baby bonding issues going on. She kind of looked like a stranger, right, in my arms. That's really hard to comprehend if there's parents listening. But when you're in it, like when your mind is so clinically unwell, that's kind of what I was experiencing. And I was crying to my psychiatrist, and I'm like, is this going to stuff her up? Like, like I know how important attachment theory is going to, like I know how important this period of time is. And she's like, absolutely not. And she's like, all you're going to do is you're going to fake it till you make it. And she said, you've got, the first few years of their life where mirror neurons are firing. And she said, she has Jay and your beautiful family as attachment, right? And she can't tell when you're smiling whether it's a fake smile or a real smile at this stage when she's 9 weeks old. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is every day you're going to sing to her, and you're going to give her baby massages with baby oil. And she said, and you're just going to fake it, right, until you get through it. And while that was happening as well, they're getting my medication right. Mm-hmm. And so I remember like 2 weeks in of my hospital stay, they had nailed my medication. And I just remember like doing this bicycle legs with Clara and singing to her, and then like doing the Eskimo kiss with her nose. And I'm like, I will die for this kid. And this huge emotion of love came over me. And I'm like, that's what people talk about. And then from then on, she is like my best mate. Like she, which I'll make sure that I become her guiding parent rather than her best mate as a kid. Because we're not meant to be our kids' best mates.
Yes. Thanks, Lyle Stone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We're there to guide them. Thank you, Lyle. But she is like the sweetest, kindest, happiest, nature-loving, animal-loving. I mean, I couldn't get a closer relationship with a kid even if I tried. And so I think that's a nice hope of optimism story for people who are listening. If you are going through postnatal, perinatal, if you have experienced it, you're going to be okay. I think it's a real hard thing to be in the trench, and then as soon as you recover, that's why we need to get onto it quickly, right? So you can recover quicker and you don't get to the depths of where I did. But yeah, that's a good question, Cherie. No one's ever asked me that before.
Really? Oh, well, thank you for answering it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What's when we look at the future for EQ Minds, for Chelsea, for your whole family, from a work perspective, where would you like to see, what's your vision for yourself and for the business from a work perspective, 5, 10 plus years into the future?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's funny because I can see it, I see it in my mind, all the time. And so the EQ Minds brand will continue to grow. It has to, because there's only, so much you can do. And so that'll keep scaling up so we can keep making more social impact on people. We have a different business coming out next year, which I can't talk about at the moment. But that's kind of exciting. And it was always, every time we make a business decision, it is always with a mission involved. Empower and educate people to take care of their mental well-being. If it does not fall into that bracket, we will not touch it. And that's really good, right, for our, I guess, our compass, right? Okay, where are we heading? And every business, because you get so many exciting ideas, and you get so many great opportunities thrown your way, and you're like, that's a square peg jamming into a round hole. That's not going to work, right? And so everything we're like, that's how Jay and I make our business decisions. Is that aligned to our mission? Yes, great. Let's invest some time, money, and resources to that. But my most exciting thing for the company, which is I'm hoping 3 also years away, is investing into mental health hospitals. And it's not like your typical psychiatric hospital. They will have psychiatrists and psychologists on site, but ideally what I visualize is to have it almost like a soul retreat, right? Where you come, they have beautiful food, they actually have decent hospital beds, you've got pillows. It might not even be called a hospital. Maybe it's called a soul retreat. Who knows? People who've got mental ill health and they come in, and our hospital system is so, it's just, there's no beds. There's no beds in the psychiatric space. It's really hard to get in to see a psychologist and psychiatrist. There's hardly any resources there. When you get in, it's kind of, hospitals are bizarre. Like I loved where I was at St. John of God. I'm so grateful to them, and I'm not throwing shade at them. However, there is some room for improvement of disruption in terms of like organic food, what we eat affects our mental health. Natural light. Why do we not have our hospital, like our rooms, looking out onto, mountains? Can we have horses on site for equine therapy? Can we have like decent pillows so people can clock a good sleep? Things like that we know that are so beneficial for people's mental health. Medication is only one tool in the toolkit. Cognitive behavior therapy is another tool in the toolkit. However, so is nutrition, sleep hygiene, learning mindfulness, all these things that you can bring in to really help humans so they don't relapse as well. So that's the end dream, right?
Wow.
Brilliant. And then when I'm 95, maybe turning them over into assisted dying hospitals so I can go out in a really big bang in a really beautiful space.
I love that. I love that. Oh, that's incredible. The way that you're just describing that, I'm just seeing it like, yep, that's going to be happening. I don't know when you've got it in your timeline, but I have no doubt that will be, you get the right investors and the right piece of land and get that started. And that's incredible.
Yeah, I can already see that. Like, I'm really hoping the first one's down here where we live at Rose Valley, because we've got the rolling hills, you got the horses and cows in the paddock that meet the ocean, and it's only an hour and 40 from Sydney. And I'm like, that would be amazing, right? Like it's needed. It's needed, and it's that whole thing. If you can't see the change, you be the change, and you disrupt what's currently there. But obviously, with that requires a lot of private investment. So we need to get to that stage to unlock that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, incredible. That is incredible. And as you say, so needed because old ways of doing things isn't necessarily going to meet the modern way we need to address life as it is now.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
That's incredible. Chelsea, if there was one request or one wish, if you could grant a wish to workplaces and leaders around how they can have a positive impact on the mental well-being of their people, what would that be? What would that one thing you wish that all workplaces could do or would adopt? other than getting you guys in to speak, of course. But in addition to that, what would one change policy, way of being look like?
Can you imagine if I said that? Like, that would be so narcissistic. What everyone needs is EQ, Mark. Can you imagine? It's like
Can
if
you
I
imagine?
listened to my own meditations, they'd be like, what a wanker.
Oh, so you don't? You don't listen?
Definitely not. No way.
Only kidding. No, but yeah, what would one thing be?
One thing would be, I think with leaders, is that in companies, right, it always starts at the top, right? The leadership team. And that's kind of where the culture starts. And it needs to be accountable and really invested, right, by the leadership team in terms of them looking after themselves first. So then they can look after other people and they role model that behavior. And so if there's leaders out there who say, for example, they're like, Cherie, I really care about my team. I care about their mental health. This is really important work for me. Yet they are peppering their team at 2 a.m. with emails or sending them work emails on the weekend. That is complete cognitive dissonance, right? They're saying one thing and behaving in a different way. And so they really need to, one, own it themselves, like this whole accountability piece of, again, back to that one body, one vessel thing. I think about this a lot in the finance sector. People invest, and we invest too in a property and shares, but it's a very big thing, right? In the cities of like, okay, investment's really important, and we've been told that for a very long time with superannuation, and then I always think, okay, that's fine because individuals need to obviously financially or commercially take themselves to the end. However, why aren't people got the same tenacity or the same passion or to invest into their body? And this is the very last. This is the thing that's going to take them to their very last breath. I'm like, this should be our super, right?
Yes.
And so I think the one wish, if leaders could take account, like take stock of their own health and well-being, and then role model that behavior to your teams, that would be glorious, right? I think that would just be so great because the troops are always watching you. And if you're saying one thing and doing another, man, that's really, really tough because that person will think that they can't get into a more executive position unless they're flogging themselves on weekends and in the middle of the night. And we want them for longevity, right? Like we want people to stay at companies. We don't want them to burn out. And it's really expensive to get good talent back into your company. And so I just think that's an ownership piece, an accountability piece. And same with all individuals who are listening. There's a lot of people who point out the reasons why they can't do something and blame other people. But when you're pointing out and blaming someone else, with the one finger, you got four fingers pointing back at you. And at some point you have to own your own shit, right? And just go, you know what? I don't feel like this anymore. I'm sick of being tired and wired. I'm sick of like not feeling great. Just start, right? Just start the smallest, simplest step to get yourself back into living a really energized and happier life.
Yeah, brilliant. If we could see more of that in multiple workplaces, it really, really makes a difference in the world. It truly will. I had a workshop today, and just speaking to what you've just said, it was incredible. One of the takeaways from a new person in a team, she said, we were talking about emails, exactly as you just said, and around just considering when we work flexibly, but consider using schedule send instead of, sending someone in the middle of the night. So we're not saying not to work when it's right for you, but just consider that. And she said, it was almost this sense of relief. She's like, thank you for giving me permission that I don't have to respond to everything on a weekend because I just hadn't stopped looking at my work phone. And it was it really just hit me because she was this really young, new to the company, vibrant young woman, but it was like, wow, is that what we're setting people up to believe, that this is how success must look, is to be always on? But just to have that conversation around, it doesn't need to be this way. the more that we can remind ourselves as leaders and as communicators to be responsible for what we're sending, because then, the response that people are coming back with, that sense of obligation, like we're contributing to it unintentionally mostly, but it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's such a great point that you just made there, Cherie, is that some people's chronological clock, they are night owls and they do their best work at nighttime. And that's totally okay, right, to honour that. But it's also then, that using that schedule platform. So like an 8 a.m. inbox drop so I think that's so important. It's also like having your own boundaries. I don't even check socials or anything on the weekend. Like, I'm so off the grid. I just totally unplug. Same with on the holidays. I just unplug for the whole week. I'm going offline. It's so awesome, because then the people that I'm actually with, they get a really mindful version of me, because I'm not constantly on my phone and I'm actually really enjoying the moment. And then I get excited when I get back, because I haven't been on the whole time.
I think that's so important to hear from you, especially because you've got an incredible, both the company and you personally, like a big following on social media. You're very present, and you've got your, I think, very authentic view of who you are, or what we see from what I can see. There's lots of insights, and just the fact that, you have those boundaries, but can still maintain that, I guess, public presence, if you like, and that social interaction. Because I feel like so many people might have this, they're in the trap that they have to be on that all the time as well to have that presence. But it feels like you've got quite a good balance.
Yeah, thanks, Cherie. And we will not post on the weekends. We just don't post on the weekends. Because of that, my whole team's taking a break. And I encourage them all to take a break every 6 weeks if they can, for longevity, and also to enjoy the journey. Just to have a good time while you're here. You know what? Retirement isn't a guarantee. You getting to 85, that is not a guarantee. We had some really tragic situations going this year with some of our friends, and we're only 43, right? And we lost 3 friends this year, and we're like, hang on.
Oh, my goodness.
So they didn't even make it to 85 when you unlock all your super and enjoy. No, just enjoy your life now, right? Work hard when you're here, sprint for those periods of time, go take a proper break, enjoy yourself, hang out with legends, be a good person. Goodness is really, people just need to be good people.
Yes, it's an underrated value or characteristic often, isn't it? That is
really
awesome.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, saying that, we're on the eve of a long weekend. Are you taking Friday off? The Anzac, a few days, 4-day weekend for some?
Well, actually, I won't be, because I've got a session on Friday. However, don't worry. I was just in Bali 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to the UK in 4 weeks with our daughter Clara. So I've got things. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, you'll be fine. I'm not feeling too sorry for you in this moment when I heard the 4 months sabbatical. But for many, I think it's so important to have this break, for everyone to have breaks. And thank you so much for your time today. I am truly so excited to have you come up to Brisbane, be at Ignite with us this year. And I know that our community are just going to love hearing from you in person. And it's a delight to hear something other than your voice for a 6 or 9 minute meditation.
I was going to mention my favourite meditation from Chelsea is like the detachment from overthinking, only because it gets to the point where you visualise standing on a beach with the waves hitting your feet. And I always have a spot on the Gold Coast that I picture myself at. But then I decided that would be too fanboying or fangirling from the boy. So then I left that part out. But
I feel like
anyway.
I feel like I've listened to some of those so many times that even in some of the work we do, where there's some similarities. It's not the same. There's some similarities, and I'll say a phrase, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was like, what's the first thing we do when we open our phones and we're recycling the hurt of the world? I'm like, I think Chelsea says that on the pod, on one of the meditations.
Morning intentions. That's
it's just that's how many times it is in my head. Anyway, it's a wonderful thing.
That is so nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cherie and Andy, for all that you do and the beautiful social impact that you're having with your company and what you do for your work as well. And I'm so thrilled to see you and see your community up in Brisbane as well. So thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us on the Lead with Courage podcast. We illuminate leadership, and it's our mission to inspire and grow the leaders of today to create a better tomorrow. We hope and trust that this episode has given you some insights and joy to empower you to live your biggest, best life. If you did enjoy the episode, we'd be so grateful for you to rate and share wherever you listen to this podcast. And until next time, go and lead with courage. Illuminate Leadership is not a licensed mental health service or a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. Any conversation in this podcast is general in nature, and if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114.